Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that, well, dives deep into sources to pull out those nuggets of knowledge, get you informed, and maybe spark some of those aha moments.
Absolutely.
And today, we're heading into a really fascinating area, tackling a question that people have wrestled with for, well, ages. What really makes someone a great speaker?
Yeah, is it just the skill,
Well,
the delivery?
right. Is it just dazzling delivery, knowing all the right words, or is there something, much deeper going on, something more fundamental? Because we've all seen it, right? Throughout history, in forums, halls, everywhere. We get swayed, moved, inspired by powerful words.
Definitely.
But for all that impressive rhetoric, the stage presence, the sheer personality, what's that the secret ingredient? What makes a speaker truly great?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And our deep dive today takes us way back to ancient Rome, to probably the most famous speaker of them all, Cicero, a guy whose words literally shaped an empire.
A giant figure.
Totally. And his answer, which he laid out in his work, De Oratore, it might just shift how you think about influence. He didn't just say you need skill. No, he insisted the ideal speaker must be, and this is the key phrase, a good person with a broad education.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he pictured this virtuous leader, someone who brilliantly combines deep wisdom with real eloquence. So, okay, let's unpack this. What does it actually mean for the foundation of a great speech to be character, not just technique?
It's a huge claim, isn't it? Especially now when you think about viral sound bites and maybe style over substance sometimes.
Right. Seems almost countercultural today.
It really does. Cicero basically moves the goalpost entirely. He's saying the real power of a speaker doesn't just come from clever phrases or, rhetorical tricks. Instead, he argues it comes from who they are at their core, their ethics, how much they know, their grasp of the world's complexities, their moral compass. These things, for Cicero, are where true, lasting influence comes from.
So without that core,
Without them, even the most polished words just ring hollow. They lack weight.
and that's exactly what we're digging into today. That's our mission. We've gathered I think it's a really fascinating stack of sources for you.
It's great.
Yeah, it stretches all the way from ancient Greek philosophers, the guys who first really theorized about rhetoric, through revered historical figures whose words genuinely moved nations, right up to modern thinkers looking at leadership and human connection today.
A really broad sweep.
Our goal isn't just to skim, it's to pull out those essential nuggets, those aha moments that show why character, wisdom, and that genuine connection with an audience aren't just nice to haves.
They're essential.
Exactly. They're paramount for anyone who really wants to influence, inspire, and lead. We're trying to get at the enduring power of Cicero's vision.
Precisely. And we'll see how this idea really transcends time and culture. You'll find it woven into Plato's critiques, Aristotle's practical advice, Quintilian's teaching texts.
Okay.
Then we'll trace its echoes through people like Russell Conwell, the sheer conviction of sojourner truth.
Powerful examples.
Absolutely. And then we see these ancient principles mirrored in contemporary voices like Simon Sinek and Brené Brown. It's a deep dive into what makes communication genuinely powerful.
And it keeps coming back to this idea that effective speaking is about being profoundly, authentically human.
That's the heart of it.
All right, let's jump in. Let's really dissect Cicero's vision, because this is where it gets, for me anyway, really interesting. He wasn't just saying, hey, be good with words.
No, not at all.
He demanded a well-furnished mind, a mind packed with knowledge, understanding. He was pushing back hard against the idea that, rhetorical tricks or just being superficially clever was enough. What did that actually mean for him?
He absolutely pushed back. Cicero argued that real eloquence, the kind that truly persuades and moves people, goes way beyond just pretty language.
Okay.
In Oratore, through his characters, he puts forward this idea that an orator needs to be able to speak with fullness and variety on, wait for it, any matter whatever.
Any matter whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just think about the scope of that. This isn't about learning a few good lines or mastering one style for one topic.
Right.
It implies this vast, almost encyclopedic knowledge. So you can engage deeply with any subject that comes up, no matter how complex. It's like a deep river versus a shallow puddle.
So it's less about the vocal cords and dramatic pauses.
Much less.
And much more about intellectual horsepower. Real expertise across a whole range of subjects. That sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is.
All
And
right.
Cicero knew it. One of his characters in the dialogue, Crassus, he makes this point perfectly. He's kind of lamenting the state of speaking in his own time,
Uh-huh.
saying they were unversed in law to a degree that sometimes makes one blush.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that wasn't just some academic nitpick. It was really practical critique. Imagine a speaker trying to argue a legal case or debate policy or even just give advice without really understanding the law, the history, the moral philosophy involved.
They couldn't, really. Not convincingly.
How could they speak with real authority? How could they persuade meaningfully if their knowledge was just surface level? Crassus's point is that lacking broad knowledge isn't just inconvenient, it's actually embarrassing. It undermines your credibility.
Right.
You can't grasp the implications, you can't advise properly if you don't know the details.
So no fake it till you make it in Cicero's book. A shallow understanding would eventually show.
Pretty much. And it wasn't just a criticism he aimed at others. Cicero himself, looking back, called one of his own early books, Rhetorica, a youthful indiscretion.
Really? Why?
Because, he said, it left out discussion on certain minor points on which instruction is generally desired.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds small, but it shows a huge shift in his thinking.
Okay.
His younger self was maybe more focused on the mechanics, the how-to of rhetoric. But the mature Cicero realized those minor points, the deeper stuff, the nuances of knowledge and argument, were absolutely crucial.
Ah, I see.
It was him recognizing that true mastery went beyond just technique. It needed comprehensive understanding. He saw that a great speaker had to be a real intellectual, always learning, always deepening their knowledge.
Okay, so broad knowledge is the landscape.
Yeah.
But where does moral philosophy fit in? How does knowing right from wrong become part of speaking well?
That's where it all ties together. It leads straight to his ideal of the good person. Quintilian, who came later but hugely admired Cicero, specifically said moral philosophy is entirely suited to the orator.
Why specifically moral philosophy?
Because, he argued, cases whether in court or in public debates almost always involve questions of equity and virtue. Debates often hinge on what is honorable, what's just, what's good for everyone.
Right, the big question.
Exactly. So an orator, if they want to be effective, influential, genuinely helpful, will assuredly have much to say on such topics as justice, fortitude, abstinence, self-control, and piety.
You have to know what you're talking about ethically.
Think about it. How can you argue convincingly for justice if you haven't wrestled with what justice is? How can you push for temperance if you don't get the dangers of excess?
Good point.
Quintilian's ultimate goal was profound. A good man, he said, someone who understands virtue not just by mere hearsay, not just hearing about it, but really internalizing it, living it, will speak out truly what he knows.
Wow.
It's not about memorizing ethical rules. It's about embodying them. So when you speak, your words carry the weight of real conviction, real moral authority. Your understanding of virtue shapes every argument, making your persuasion not just clever, but principled.
So the foundation isn't just broad education, it's deep moral education, leading to that good person. Character is absolutely central.
Absolutely. Which brings us right to the bedrock.
Yeah.
Character, the good person. And Cicero's emphasis here, it has deep roots, especially in Plato's critiques of superficial persuasion. You see it powerfully in dialogues like the Gorgias.
Plato, right?
Yeah, Socrates, who's Plato's voice there, argues that rhetoric without real knowledge, without a foundation in truth and virtue, it's just an unsystematic knack.
A knack, like cooking without knowing nutrition.
Exactly like that. You can make something tasty, gratifying, but you can't truly nourish. For Socrates, real politicians, the ones who genuinely serve the citizens, they aim at the good of the citizens, not just pleasing them in the moment, or worse, grabbing power through manipulation. He saw a huge difference between pleasing and truly helping.
And he didn't mince words about those who just wanted power without the wisdom or virtue, did he?
Not at all. Socrates went so far as to say that tyrants, even with all their power, don't really do what they truly want.
How so?
Because they're ignorant of what's actually good. They might chase wealth or dominance, thinking that will bring happiness, but they're fundamentally mistaken about their real goals.
So they have power, but not true
Right.
power.
In Socrates' view, yes. They lack genuine power because they operate from ignorance about human flourishing. It's like a sick person eating sugary, harmful foods just because they taste good. Their actions might seem powerful, but they're ultimately self-defeating and harmful because they misunderstand what true good actually is.
That's a really profound idea. True power comes from understanding the good, not just from force or manipulation. It's internal.
Precisely. And you see this echoed strongly in another major Platonic dialogue, the Phaedrus. There, Plato says it's a source of shame for someone to give speeches or write things if they think there's any great degree of reliability and clarity in it without first knowing what activities are right and wrong and good and bad.
So ignorance on moral matters is shameful, even if people applaud you.
Exactly. He argues that ignorance on these core moral issues is a matter for reproach, no matter how popular you are or how successful you seem. It wasn't a call for better technique, it was a demand for moral insight. The idea is that a speaker's inner moral compass has to be aligned with truth and virtue. Otherwise, their words are hollow, or worse, dangerous. They could lead people astray. Without that ethical foundation, clarity just becomes cleverness. Reliability becomes deception.
Which makes me think of Elie Wiesel's warnings about intellectuals and power, the danger of getting too close to authority.
Wiesel's insights are incredibly relevant and quite chilling. He said point blank that power corrupts. Worse than that disturbs, perturbs, disfigures the thought process.
Disfigures the thought process. Wow.
It goes right to the heart of why being a good person is so vital for an orator. Think about it. If your thinking is twisted by the need to maintain power, your priorities shift. Truth and justice might take a backseat to keeping your influence.
Yeah, I can see that.
A speaker without that strong ethical core, that inner moral strength, can easily fall prey to temptations that come with influence. They might start out meaning well, but gradually, subtly, their words become tools just to keep power, even if it means fudging the truth or compromising ethics. Without that inner good person, even the sharpest mind can be led astray, and their words can end up serving something much less honorable. It really highlights how vulnerable even a broadly educated speaker is if their character isn't solid.
Okay, so we've got the ideal. Broadly educated, fundamentally good, virtuous. But once you are that person, how do you actually speak effectively? What did Cicero and others say about the craft itself? The techniques that let that virtuous mind communicate with impact? Because good intentions need good communication, right?
Absolutely. The craft is vital, no question. But, and this is key, it always has to serve the bigger purpose. Conveying truth, serving the audience, making a real connection. Cicero, in the Orator, he laid out this kind of progression for effective style.
Okay, what was that?
He emphasized that while fancy stuff, ornament, has its place, it should never overshadow clarity or appropriateness. He started with the need to speak pure and Latin. Basically correct, clear Latin, that's the baseline. If your language is sloppy or confusing, you've lost.
Makes sense, start clear.
Then he moved to plain et delucide, plain and lucid. Not just correct, but easy to understand, straightforward, transparent, like intellectual accessibility.
Got it.
Only after you've got purity, correctness, plainness, lucidity. Then you get to ornate adorned. This is where figures of speech, metaphor, style come in. But crucially, they're meant to enhance clarity and impact, not hide it.
Okay.
And the final step, the peak, is ad redum dignitatem apte e quasi decore, appropriate and dignified for the subject matter and the occasion. Adapting your style to the context, making sure your words match the weight of the message.
So there's a hierarchy. Clarity first, then appropriateness, then maybe the fancy stuff.
Exactly. The art serves the message, not the other way around. It's not about being fancy just to show off. It's about finding the right way, the appropriate way to express important ideas, making them hit home without losing their dignity.
Right. That feels very different from just focusing on technique.
It is. And Aristotle, way back in his Rhetoric, said something similar about the virtue of wording. He said it must be clear, but also neither low class nor above what the subject deserves, but appropriate.
Appropriate again. That seems key.
Totally. He made this interesting distinction. Common, everyday words, prevalent words, make things clear. In other words, more unusual, poetic, technical ones can make it fancy. But he warned strongly against using them inappropriately.
Like using jargon in casual conversation.
Exactly. Or, as he put it, if those fancy words are used by a slave or someone too young or about matters too minor, it just becomes ridiculous. It tanks your credibility. The language has to fit the speaker, the audience, and the seriousness of the topic. It needs to be a harmonious blend.
Okay, style makes sense. What about the structure of a speech? Does that also link back to clarity and integrity?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's totally tied to making sure the message lands clearly and has impact. Aristotle pointed out that if you present things in a jumbled way, it makes them hard to remember.
Yeah, you lose track.
Right. Trying to follow an argument that leaps all over the place. It's frustrating, ineffective. He pushed for simple, logical organization that guides the listener smoothly.
And Quintilian.
Quintilian echoed this later. He said it's not a crime to repeat a statement of a fact more than once. if repeating helps make the case clearer or stick in the mind.
Practical advice.
Very practical. And he went further, saying something profound. Only a lunatic will allow a superstitious observance of rules to lead him counter to the interests of his case.
Wow, so don't follow rules blindly if they hurt your actual point?
Exactly. The ultimate goal is clear communication, persuasion that serves the truth, not just ticking boxes on some rhetorical checklist. The structure, the rules, the techniques, they're all just tools. And you have to use them intelligently to serve the message, not let them become the master. The message drives the structure.
That's a really crucial distinction, but it does bring up that fine line. If you focus too much on the art, the style, the techniques, what happens to the truth? Where's that balance between skillful delivery and just deceptive showmanship?
That is exactly the danger. It's a trap many speakers fall into, maybe without even realizing it. Quintilian, again, he had this really sharp warning. He said the orator must avoid affectation of subtlety. Don't try too hard to be clever. And absolutely avoid displaying art unveiled.
Displaying art unveiled? What does that mean?
It means the audience shouldn't see the strings being pulled. They shouldn't be consciously aware of the rhetorical tricks you're using. Because, as Quintilian put it sparkly, if the orator displays his art unveiled, the hearer says the truth is not in him.
Whoa, so if they see the technique, they distrust the message.
Precisely. When the technique becomes obvious, when the performance overshadows the substance, it instantly kills the sincerity. And with it, the audience's trust. It stops being communication and becomes just a performance, and people can feel that inauthenticity. They sense manipulation, not conviction.
That's such a powerful image truth hidden by the showmanship. It makes me think of that hilarious but pointed story from Russell Conwell.
Yes, the unseeing eyeglass bit from Acres of Diamonds. Conwell was a master storyteller. He paints this unforgettable picture of a millionaire's son from New York.
Right, the human cricket.
Yeah, calls him a human cricket, dressed like a grasshopper, so vivid, who wore an eyeglass that he could not see through, had patent leather boots that he could not walk in, and pants that he could not sit down in.
Just completely impractical. All show.
Totally. All for appearance. And the kicker is, this guy affected a lisp thinking it sounded sophisticated. English, you know?
Oh, dear.
And Conwell's punchline, delivered with such disdain, is that despite all this show, the guy could not carry paper and envelopes 20 feet without collapsing. Conwell just says he had no pity for such travesties upon human nature.
Yeah.
It's this brilliant, funny, but deeply critical example of how outward show without any inner substance is just useless, ridiculous even, a total contrast to real ability or character.
That story absolutely nails the idea of presentation without substance being empty. Aristotle also warned about overdoing the fancy stuff, right? That it can backfire.
He absolutely did. Aristotle admitted that figures of speech, metaphors, similes, all that they depart from the straight line of normal language. And used well, they can add grace and charm, make language vivid, memorable, engaging.
But there's a but.
A big but. He warned against excess, letting these artistic bits become too obvious. He noted that if a speaker never ceases to distort his face or to wag his head and roll his eyes, they just become a laughingstock.
Right, the delivery has to fit too.
Exactly. Physical delivery, verbal style, it all has to be appropriate and measured. And critically, he added that when you're trying to evoke strong emotions like terror, hatred, and pity, paying too much obvious attention to your words and delivery actually weakens the impression of emotional sincerity.
So if you look like you're trying too hard to sound sad, it doesn't seem genuine.
Precisely. If you're meticulously crafting every syllable while trying to express grief or outrage, the audience sees the effort, the artifice, not the real feeling. They need to feel the authentic emotion behind the words, not watch a calculated performance of the emotion.
So art serves truth and connection. It doesn't replace it.
That's the balance. The goal is to move people, not just impress them with your technique.
Okay, we've explored Cicero's ideal, the balance of eloquence and truth. Let's bring this home. What does this actually mean for us today? How does this whole idea of character, broad education, integrity, how does it play out in the real world? Influence, leadership, even just everyday success. What are the tangible upsides?
It plays out in the most basic ways imaginable, in trust, in making a real impact, and ultimately in creating genuine opportunity. Take Russell Conwell again with that surprising claim in Acres of Diamonds.
The one about rich men.
Yeah, his bold statement that 98 out of 100 of the rich men of America are honest. That is why they are rich. That is why they are trusted with money.
That definitely goes against the grain sometimes.
It does. But Conwell's point was profound. He directly linked character honesty, integrity to success, and specifically to being trusted enough to lead great enterprises. Who do you trust with big responsibilities, resources, a vision?
Someone honest, someone reliable.
Exactly, not the manipulator. You trust the person whose character is solid, whose word means something, whose intentions seem clear. This isn't just about personal ethics. It's the practical currency of trust. In business, in leadership, in everything.
So honesty isn't just a virtue, it's almost a strategic advantage for long-term success.
In many ways, yes. And you hear that echoed so clearly by Earl Nightingale. He talked about this universal principle. The only way to earn money is by providing people with services or products which are needed and useful.
Service first.
Right. He insisted success is in direct proportion to our service. He totally flipped the script on money-making success. He said success produces money. And that resonates perfectly with Cicero's virtuous orator. Well, a truly great speaker serves the audience, provides real value, sheds light on truth, guides towards wisdom. They're not just taking or manipulating, they're being genuinely useful and needed. And that usefulness comes from that broad education and good character.
So it's about understanding a real need and then delivering value, not just focusing on your own game. Didn't Conwell have another story about that? Something about a country store?
Yes, the brilliant story about the jackknives. He talks about when he was young, working in his dad's store. A customer comes in, asks for a jackknife. Young Conwell, whistling away, totally indifferent, just says, nope, don't have them. No interest in helping. Later in life, after learning some hard lessons, he realized something fundamental. The foundation of godliness and the foundation principle of success in business are both the same precisely. Service, understanding genuine need. He realized if he'd run that store on a Christian plan, a plan based on serving others, he wouldn't have just dismissed the customer. He'd have noticed the repeat requests, stocked a jackknife for the third guy, done him a kindness, and been rewarded financially and morally.
It's such a practical example.
Totally. It shows how shifting your internal principle from indifference to service leads to way better results. For a speaker, that means truly understanding and serving the audience's real needs and concerns. That builds trust and influence far more effectively than any slick trick.
That's a fantastic illustration of virtue leading to impact. But sometimes influence doesn't come from formal education or polished technique at all, does it? It comes from something raw, lived experience, sheer conviction.
Absolutely. And for that, you just have to look at Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman speech. Ohio Women's Rights Convention, 1851. Here's an orator who could neither read nor write, a total contrast to Cicero's emphasis on literacy. Yet she had deep insight, and won through her wonderful personal influence.
The context was incredible, too.
Unbelievable. She embodied, as the account says, the two most hated elements of humanity, than being black and a woman. Yet she stood there, calm and dignified, facing a crowd that was partly supportive, partly hostile.
And her words.
Her words. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me, and ain't I a woman? Those weren't lines learned in school. That was raw, undeniable truth from her own brutal life experience, delivered with this visceral power.
It wasn't rhetoric, it was testimony. She was her message.
Exactly. Her famous line, I can't read a book, but I can read the people, it points to this different, profound kind of wisdom, an intuitive, empathetic understanding of people, injustice, the audience's soul. It went beyond formal learning.
Yeah.
She wasn't just talking at them. She was confronting the core assumptions of her time through her own existence and those powerful, direct questions. Her conviction hit home not because of technique, but because it was deeply felt, deeply lived, profoundly true for her. A powerful example of the good person, speaking from deep knowledge, the knowledge of life itself.
And thinking about Conwell again, he wasn't aiming for high-flown rhetoric either, was he? He wanted a different kind of connection, more personal.
That's exactly right. Conwell aimed to preach so simply that you will not think it preaching, but just that you were listening to a friend. That desire for authentic, simple, relatable communication let him connect deeply, make everybody feel happy.
Less about dazzling, more about connecting.
Yes. It wasn't about showing off his intellect. It was about building rapport, being accessible, speaking in a way that felt trustworthy, empathetic, that approachability, that authenticity. It's another mark of Cicero's good person, someone genuinely trying to connect and serve, not just impress or dominate.
And these ideas connect directly to leadership, right?
Yeah.
How great leaders embody that good person and broad education through their sense of purpose, their why.
Precisely. Think about Theodore Roosevelt, a man of huge intellect, strong moral conviction. He passionately believed Every man was to devote a reasonable share of his time to doing his duty in the political life of the community.
A civic duty.
Yes, rooted in the idea of the good person serving the public good. And he also stressed the need for fearless criticism. But we need that it should also be intelligent.
Both courage and smarts.
Right. It speaks to the ethical commitment, being fearless enough to speak truth, and the broad, informed perspective needed for effective leadership, the intelligence behind the criticism. It's not just acting or speaking, it's acting thoughtfully, intelligently, for the greater good, driven by duty and a well-informed mind.
And bringing that up to date, Simon Sinek's work on Start with WHY feels like such a modern echo of this.
Oh, absolutely. Sinek's concept of starting with YHY lines up perfectly with Cicero's ideal, just framed for modern business and leadership. Sinek says effective leaders and companies start with WHY, the inspiration, the core belief, the purpose.
That's the emotional core.
Exactly. He links it to the emotional limbic brain, the part handling feelings, trust, loyalty. That's where conviction, values, character live. Very much like Cicero's good person, the what they do. Products, services, speeches. That's the rational neocortex.
So the connection comes from the why.
For Sinek, yes. True influence, loyalty, lasting success comes from communicating your core purpose, your beliefs, your character first. It's the WHY that drives action and inspires deep connection because it hits that emotional, human level. Just like a virtuous orator whose inner conviction shines through, it's the deep purpose that makes the words resonate.
Leading with authentic purpose. And we see that kind of inner strength, that resilience, even when facing unbelievable adversity, don't we?
We absolutely do. Tony Robbins tells that incredibly moving story of W. Mitchell, an individual who thrives despite severe adversity.
What happened to him?
He faced unimaginable things. Burned over 65% of his body in one accident, then later paralyzed from the waist down in another. Yet his ability to see it all, not as a loss, but as a chance to grow, that shows an extraordinary inner mindset. It speaks directly to that inner fortitude, the strength of character of the good person. That kind of resilience and radical reframing isn't just a personal win. It's what allows leaders and speakers to inspire hope, navigate huge challenges, show integrity and purpose beyond the hardship. It's that unbreakable inner spirit, a testament to character in action.
Truly powerful. And speaking of conviction against power, let's talk courage and critical thinking. Because sometimes being that good person, that broadly educated one, means speaking truth or dissenting, even when it's unpopular.
Definitely. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is such a fantastic modern example of that courageous, principled speaking. She deliberately made a practice of announcing her dissents orally from the bench.
Not just writing them down.
No, it wasn't just procedure. It was a powerful signal. She was amplifying her view that a majority opinion was not just wrong, but profoundly misguided. That took immense courage. She was using her voice, her platform, to directly challenge power, assert what she believed was right, even in the minority. A real display of commitment to justice and intellectual integrity.
And her dissents showed really nuanced thinking, too, right? Not just disagreement.
Yes, exactly. For instance, in one dissent on affirmative action, she carefully laid out the legal and practical difference between the use of race-conscious criteria to keep the races apart and the use of race-conscious criteria to bring the races together.
That's a complex distinction.
It really is. It wasn't a simple emotional argument. It showed this profound critical thinking, moving beyond easy binaries. She articulated complexity, reflecting that broad, intelligent, morally grounded perspective Cicero championed. Deep understanding and principled, clear justification, even for an unpopular view.
And sometimes that courage, that doing what's right, it happens outside formal settings, doesn't it? In crises without an audience.
Les Brown gives such a poignant example, talking about the Rodney King riots in L.A. in '92. He contrasted the police officers who were sworn to uphold what was right and they did not, acting instead from cowardice or consensus. And then he sharply contrasted them with others in that same chaos who stepped forward, answered their consciences, and did what was right at the great risk, both to their personal safety and to their standing in their community.
Like the people who rescued Reginald Denny.
Exactly. Those ordinary citizens who intervened when he was being beaten by the mob. They weren't giving speeches, but their actions. Incredibly eloquent. That immediate selfless intervention was the good person in its purest form. Moral courage, an innate sense of justice in an extreme moment. Their actions were their speech.
And thinking about critical takes on leadership, Kurt Vonnegut had some typically sharp words for leaders lacking empathy and wisdom.
Oh, Vonnegut. Always brilliant, always cutting. He expressed deep contempt for the politicians who get us into war from the safety of their age and position, a direct challenge to leaders making huge decisions from a detached place.
Right.
He famously talked about empathy deficit disorder and its cure, linking empathy to reason and action, which lines up perfectly with Cicero's call for virtuous leadership grounded in understanding and wisdom.
So without empathy.
Without empathy, Vonnegut suggests, leaders aren't truly good people in Cicero's sense. They lack the moral imagination to grasp the human cost. And without linking empathy to reason and action, their broad education is incomplete. It doesn't translate into humane governance. They fail to connect with the suffering. Their decisions cause exactly what Cicero's ideal orator, steeped in moral philosophy and broad understanding, would fight against.
Wow, what an incredible sweep connecting ancient ideas to modern life. We've talked intellectual foundations, moral character, the craft, real-world examples, but before any of that happens, before the speech, before the stage, what's going on inside? What's the internal work needed for this kind of character and wisdom to actually grow?
Now we're getting to the inner landscape, cultivating the orator's soul, which is arguably the deepest source of their power. Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret offers a core principle here. We become what we think about.
The power of thought.
But it's not just wishful thinking. It's about deliberate, sustained mental focus. Nightingale argued that if you consistently hold positive goals and thoughts in a cheerful, relaxed, positive way each morning, you immediately get something to work for, something to get out of bed for, something to live for.
That connects directly to purpose.
Deeply. Your inner thoughts, your dominant attitude, they don't just shape your reality. They shape your character, your ability to act with purpose and integrity. It's about cultivating that internal compass, always pointing towards your best self and highest values.
So intentionality in the inner world, like a daily mental practice.
Exactly. And Les Brown hammers this home with such passion. He says, what really matters is having goals and going after them wholeheartedly. In the end, it is the person you become, not the things you achieve, that is most important.
The journey over the destination.
In terms of character, yes. That statement shifts focus from external stuff, trophies, money, to the profound importance of who you're building yourself into. The striving, the integrity you develop, the resilience, it's the real prize. It's not the stuff on the shelf, but the strength and wisdom forged inside. Perfectly aligns with Cicero's good person, emphasizing that who you are matters most. It's the bedrock.
And Seneca, the Stoic, he had a really stark, almost bracing reminder about where true strength lies, stripping away all the externals.
Seneca's words are incredibly bracing, yeah. A powerful call to look inward. He reflected, put aside the opinion of the world. It is always wavering and always takes both sides. Put aside the studies which you have pursued throughout your life. Death will deliver the final judgment in your case.
Wow. Intense.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be morbid. It's this stark reminder. True strength of soul, real character, isn't proven by achievements, applause, or even brilliant speeches or deep learning. In the end, it's your authentic self, the person you became, that counts. It pushes that Ciceronian good person ideal inward, urging us to build an inner virtue that can withstand external pressures and fleeting opinions. It forces that tough question. Are you building substance or just a really good facade?
That's a powerful question for anyone. Now, today we talk so much about vulnerability, empathy, essential human qualities. How do these modern psychological ideas connect back to Cicero's good person and their ability to connect authentically?
They connect profoundly. They give us a modern vocabulary for Cicero's ancient wisdom. Take Brené Brown's work on shame. She defines shame as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection?
Okay.
That suggests a truly good speaker, one seeking real connection, not just approval, has to be willing to be vulnerable. Hiding behind a perfect mask, intellectual superiority, flawless technique actually creates distance. It blocks real connection. It's being willing to be seen, flaws and all, that lets others relate.
So vulnerability isn't weakness for a speaker. It's actually a bridge to connection and maybe even influence.
Precisely. Brown tells that story about flashing a knowing smile. You're not alone. I've been there, sister, to a struggling mom in a store. She notes empathy requires some vulnerability from the giver. You have to tap into your own struggles. But doing that, it loosens up the web for both people, fostering this genuine, unspoken connection.
Yeah.
A speaker who can be authentic, show their humanity, genuinely understand and acknowledge the audience's struggles, hopes, fears. They create a profound bond that slick rhetoric just can't touch. That empathetic connection born of vulnerability and real care makes their wisdom land not just in the head, but in the heart.
And this ability, empathy, vulnerability, connection, it comes from actively working that gold mine between your ears, as Nightingale called it. Not just absorbing facts, but really processing, applying.
Yes, absolutely. Nightingale saw the mind as this priceless resource, a gold mine capable of creativity, problem-solving, deep insight. He insisted everything you and I will ever have will come to us as a result of the way we use our minds.
It all starts there.
It connects right back to Cicero's broad education. Not just passively collecting knowledge, but actively cultivating wisdom. Relentless curiosity, thinking creatively, understanding complexity, solving human problems, and, crucially, connecting with others deeply. It's about using that incredible inner resource to be both wise and good, letting character and intellect work together for genuine influence and positive impact. The mind, truly, is the wellspring for the orator.
What an absolutely incredible journey today, from ancient Rome's dusty forums right up to modern psychology. We've really spanned the centuries to see how Cicero's ideal, the broadly educated, virtuous orator, still resonates with such clarity.
It really does hold up, doesn't it?
It does. We've explored deep philosophical arguments for truth over mere technique, looked at powerful modern examples of character driving influence, from Supreme Court dissents to the raw truth of Sojourner Truth, even the quiet heroism of everyday folks.
Yeah, the thread is consistent.
And the core idea, the essence, it just stays the same. Real, lasting power in communication doesn't just come from what you say or how brilliantly you say it. Fundamentally, it stems from who you are.
That is the undeniable takeaway, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a potent reminder that our words carry weight because of the integrity, the knowledge, the empathy, the conviction behind them.
Yeah.
The most impactful speeches aren't just well-crafted, they are, in a very deep sense, well-lived. They're the outward sign of inner character.
So, as you go about your day, maybe you're listening to people trying to persuade you, taking in information, or maybe you're preparing your own words to share. Could be a big presentation, could be a simple conversation. Ask yourself this: is this speaker, is this message built on the shifting sands of just technique, fleeting trends, maybe clever manipulation? Or is it founded on that solid bedrock of character, real wisdom, and an authentic desire to serve and connect? And what responsibility does that put on you as the listener to tell the difference? And on you as a potential speaker for how you cultivate both your knowledge and your character? How can you embody that ideal orator in your own life, no matter how big or small your stage might be?
That's a profound question to sit with.
It really is, and definitely something worth pondering long after this deep dive is over.